are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
And Barack knows that we are going to have to make sacrifices. We are going to have to change our conversation. We're going to have to change our traditions, our history. We're going to have to move into a different place.
Wow. How alarming is that? When we first heard it, we didn't know exactly what she meant other than transformation. Wait, I don't want to change our history. But look at how well coordinated everything has become. They did change our history. They're still changing our history. They're still changing our traditions. It's remarkable how well planned this was. Well, according to the New York Post, grievance has become the predominant theme at Monticello. They say from the ticket booth to the visitors center, which is decorated with contemporary painting of Jefferson's weeping slaves, to its final gift shop display, it's no longer telling the story of Thomas Jefferson. In addition to the ticket booth and the gift shop, which features works by critical race theorist Ibram X. Kendi and Tanisha Coates, but only one biography about Jefferson himself. The estate reportedly discusses the Native Americans who lived on the land before Jefferson purchased it. It also offers an in-depth look at Sally Hemings, Jefferson's mistress. We do not know if Sally Hemings was a mistress or not. There was a book that came out in the 90s that said it was true. It was retracted within 2 weeks, but nobody ever covered that. There is evidence in newspaper coverage at the time as a smear on Thomas Jefferson that his brother was making it with Sally Hemings. So any DNA that says Jefferson, yeah, it might be Tom, but it might be his brother, and that's what they were saying at the time. My God, we are not going to survive unless we preserve our history. Jefferson's mistress, who allegedly bore him 6 children, makes repeated reference to the enslaved people who once lived and worked at Monticello, but presents a nuanced version of Jefferson and focuses little on his accomplishments. Jeffrey Tucker, the founder of the Libertarian Brownstone Institute, recently took a group of tour to Monticello, noted a surly and dismissive tone from his tour guide. Someone asked if Jefferson had built a machine in the house, and the guide said, nah, he never really built anything. He was a tinkerer. He was a tinkerer? Are you kidding me? I mean, he designed Monticello. That's his design. The clock is his design. Oh my gosh, I can't take it. He also, founded the University of Virginia and the author of the Declaration of Independence. However, in a video posted on the Monticello Facebook page, tour guide Kyle Chattleton. Oh my gosh, is that a pretentious name? Hi, yes, I'm Kyle Chattleton III. He claims, how is it that Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal and yet also held people as slaves? It's one of the most common questions that visitors ask. I'd like to know their answer. Stu, do you know the answer?
I don't think that I do, Glenn. I don't think that I do.
Oh, my gosh. If you don't know the answer, would you Google first draft of the Declaration of Independence? It is in his own handwriting, and he capitalizes a couple of words. He was vehemently opposed to slavery. He tried his whole life to stop it. Why did he write all men are created equal and he didn't realize slaves were men? On the 3rd page of the Declaration of Independence that he wrote and 2 states stopped, it says the king is having men sold on the open market. Hello.
The Christian king of Great Britain, which was, by the way, capitalized in there to show everybody in a mocking tone that he wasn't acting all that Christian when he was saying that he wanted people to be owned and used for the purposes of the crown. I mean, this is in of course, the section where they're just lighting up Great Britain and the king and saying, hey, like, these are all the terrible things they've done and why we have to do this, why we have to declare independence in the first place. Here's our list of grievances. And that's, the longest one. It's the most prominent one.
It's half a page.
It goes on and on and on and on, just complaining about slavery, how bad it is, and how it should stop immediately. Now, they needed consensus, and they didn't have it on that.
How many times the king had thwarted them in trying to stop it. That's why Thomas Jefferson had slaves, but was against slavery. It's not because he's an American sphinx that we just can't figure out. No. He fought in Virginia to change the laws. He could not sell his slaves or release them upon his death because he was in debt. And you couldn't free slaves if you were in debt. And he was millions in debt on his death. So the record is clear. Oh my gosh, I can't.
And he inherited this story. That's another important point. The slaves were inherited.
Yeah. But he was making wild, passionate love to Sally Hemings. Or his brother was. So now we've gone down a rabbit hole. I brought up Sally Hemings, and now Stu is on a Sally Hemings rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And what have you found?
Well, the Monticello said, they think it's likely that he fathered maybe more than one of these children. And I was thinking to myself, did Jefferson do that? What's like the real backing on this? So I went into one of the big Scholars Commission reports, the Thomas Jefferson Heritage Organization, and they summarize it this way. This is what their report was after studying. It's 300 pages long. In the end, after roughly 1 year of examining the issues, we find the question of whether Thomas Jefferson fathered one or more children by his slave Sally Hemings to be one about which honorable people can and do disagree. However, it is our unanimous view that the allegation is by no means proven, and we find it regrettable that public confusion about the 1998 DNA testing and other evidence has misled many people into believing that the issue is closed. With the exception of one member, whose views are set forth below, our individual conclusions range from serious skepticism about the charge to a conviction that it is almost certainly untrue. And it goes through, there's all the scholars that were related to this backed that opinion with the exception of one. And this is what the dissent wrote. With the report of the majority, I am in general agreement. I dissent only in believing it somewhat more likely than not that Thomas Jefferson was the father of Eston Hemings, one of the children. Goes on to say it could have been others. It says, this suggests the possibility that Thomas Jefferson fathered all of her known children, but it does not prove that he fathered even one. What it does establish is a strong probability that her pregnancies during the period when she appears to have resided at Monticello were occasioned by his sojourns there. So he just happened to be, their evidence is he seemed to be there at about the same time she got pregnant. It is, in fact...
Do they mention at all the smear on him in, I think it was like 1801, they started smearing him, as president and in the campaign. And the smear was his brother slept with slaves. They even mention that?
No, it does. It goes into the fact that it could be any of here. Let's see. It is in fact, notwithstanding, a mistake to jump to the conclusion that Jefferson must have been the father of Sally Hemings' children, for there were other events that normally coincided with his visits there. Among these, one is pertinent to this inquiry: the presence of visitors whose offspring are tolerably likely to have looked like Thomas Jefferson. Visitors such as Thomas Jefferson's younger brother Randolph, Randolph's 4 or 5 sons, and Peter and Samuel Carr, sons of his sister. It goes through, it's 300 pages. It breaks down all of these things in incredible detail. But you look at the summary, they're either very skeptical of it or completely disregard it, with the exception of one guy who was from Hillsdale, by the way, not some crazy liberal guy, but said, "Look, I think it's more likely than not that one of the children was." But that's not a open and shut case by any means, and there's a lot of other possibilities there, which is interesting. That's not how the media covers that at all.
This is not being taught at Monticello. What's being taught at Monticello is that he fathered Sally Hemings' children. There's the evidence. How does Monticello get away with it? Huge liberal donations.